Welcome to our channel. Today, we pause to remember a life that touched hearts and left a lasting impact. We'll explore their journey, the challenges they faced, and the moments that made them unforgettable. Join us as we honor their story, celebrate their legacy, and reflect on the memories that will continue to inspire and live on in the hearts of those who knew them. The news arrived quietly, then spread with a heavy stillness. Fans woke up to messages they did not expect to read. Screens filled with the same words, repeated again and again. Bradley Kirk Arnold was gone. For many, it felt personal. His voice had lived in their cars, their headphones, their memories. Now, that voice belonged to memory alone. Bradley Kirk Arnold was born and raised in Mississippi, far from the bright lights of the music industry. His early life was shaped by small towns, close friendships, and a deep connection to faith and struggle. Music was not just a dream. It was an escape. Even in his early years, those who knew him remember a quiet determination and a voice that carried more emotion than volume. When Three Doors Down formed in the late 1990s, few could have predicted how far that journey would go. Their breakthrough came quickly, but it did not feel manufactured. Songs like Kryptonite spoke plainly, almost simply, yet they struck something deep. Bradley's voice was not polished or dramatic. It was honest. It sounded like someone telling the truth. As the band rose to fame, Bradley became one of the most recognizable voices in modern rock. He sang about doubt, faith, pain, and survival without hiding behind metaphor. His delivery felt personal, as if each song was meant for one listener at a time. Over the years, those songs filled arenas, radios, and long drives home. They also filled quiet moments when listeners needed strength. Behind the success, Bradley faced battles that were less visible. He spoke openly about personal struggles, including health challenges that tested both his body and his spirit. Rather than step away, he leaned into music even more. Those experiences shaped his later performances, giving them a deeper weight. Fans often said his voice carried scars, and that was why it felt real. A longtime bandmate once reflected, Bradley never sang at people. He sang with them. He wanted everyone to feel less alone. That connection became a defining part of his legacy. Concerts were not just shows. They were shared moments of release, where thousands sang the same words, carrying the same feelings. As news of his passing became public, tributes began to pour in. Fellow musicians, fans, and public figures shared memories online. One fan wrote, "His songs helped me through the hardest nights of my life. I'm still here because of that music." Another tribute read, "Bradley Arnold gave pain a voice and hope a place to rest." Those messages reflected a larger truth. Bradley's impact went beyond charts and awards. His music became a refuge. For listeners dealing with loss, addiction, or doubt, his voice offered understanding without judgment. He never claimed to have all the answers. He simply stood in the questions with his audience. In interviews, Bradley often spoke about gratitude. He credited his fans for carrying the band through decades of change in the music industry. "We're still here because people kept listening," he once said. "That's something I never take lightly." Even at the height of fame, he remained grounded in where he came from and who he was singing for. As the years passed, his performances took on a reflective tone. The energy was still there, but so was a sense of appreciation. Each song felt like a conversation between past and present. Between who he had been and who he had become. That honesty kept his music relevant to new generations discovering it for the first time. Today, the silence left behind feels heavy. Yet it is filled with echoes. Every lyric, every chorus, every familiar note still lives on. Bradley Kirk Arnold may no longer stand on stage, but his voice continues to travel through time, carried by those who need it most. He will be remembered as a singer who turned vulnerability into strength, as an artist who chose honesty over perfection, and as a voice that carried a generation through moments they could not put into words. His legacy is not just in records sold or shows performed. It lives in the quiet comfort his music still provides, and in the hearts that will never forget the sound of his truth. The news did not arrive with noise or urgency. It moved quietly through music circles, then slowly outward. Fred Smith had passed away. For many listeners, his name was not always spoken first. But his sound had been there all along, steady and unmistakable. A presence felt more than seen. Fred Smith came from a time when music was changing shape. In the early 1970s, New York City was restless and raw. Small clubs became testing grounds for new ideas. Loud guitars and fast drums filled the room, but Fred's bass moved differently. It did not rush. It anchored. It gave space for everything else to exist. As a founding member of television, Fred helped create a sound that stood apart from traditional rock. The band did not rely on excess. They relied on precision. Fred's basslines were simple, controlled, and deliberate. Each note felt chosen, not crowded. That restraint became part of the band's identity and influenced a generation of musicians searching for something new. When punk and new wave began to take form, Fred's approach stood as a quiet guide. He showed that power did not need volume. It needed purpose. One music historian later noted, Fred Smith understood that sometimes the most important note is the one you don't play. That philosophy shaped the music more than many realized at the time. Beyond television, Fred's influence reached further. He was an early contributor to Blondie, a band that would soon bridge underground energy with mainstream success. While others stood in front, Fred remained focused on the structure beneath the sound. His work helped create a foundation that allowed melody and style to evolve freely. Those who worked with him often spoke about his calm nature. He was not driven by attention or praise. Music was the work. A former collaborator once shared, Fred didn't chase the spotlight. He believed the music should speak for itself. That belief guided his career and defined his reputation. As years passed, Fred stepped away from constant public performance. Yet his influence did not fade. His basslines continued to be studied, replayed, and admired by musicians who valued clarity over noise. In rehearsal rooms and studios, his work lived on as a lesson in balance and intention. When news of his death became public, tributes reflected a deep respect. Fellow artists remembered his discipline and quiet strength. One fan wrote online, "He taught us that rebellion could be thoughtful. His sound still teaches." Another tribute read, "Fred Smith changed music without ever asking for credit." Fred's life reminded the music world that revolutions are not always loud. Some are built carefully, one note at a time. He helped shape a movement that valued honesty, simplicity, and edge. Without his steady hand, the sound of an era would have been different. Today, the stages he once stood on feel quieter. But the music remains. Every time a bassist chooses restraint over excess, Fred's influence is present. Every time a song breathes instead of shouting, his legacy is heard. Fred Smith will be remembered not as a star, but as a cornerstone. A musician who understood that foundations matter. His bass lines continue to echo through punk and new wave, carrying the spirit of a time when music dared to be different. And in that steady rhythm, his memory lives on. The news was confirmed in the early hours, and it settled slowly across the football world. A familiar name appeared on screens, followed by quiet disbelief. Sonny Jurgensen had passed away. For many fans, it felt like losing a steady presence. Someone who had been there on Sundays for as long as they could remember. Sonny Jurgensen's story began far from packed stadiums and television cameras. He grew up with a simple love for the game, shaped by discipline and hard work. From an early age, his talent was clear, but so was his calm. He did not play with flash for attention. He played with purpose. When he entered the NFL, Sonny quickly earned respect. His arm strength, timing, and decision-making set him apart. Over 18 seasons, he became known as a quarterback who trusted his instincts and stayed composed under pressure. Records followed, but they were never the point. What mattered most was how he led. Teammates often spoke about his presence in the huddle. He did not raise his voice often. He did not need to. One former teammate later recalled, when Sonny spoke, everyone listened. He had a calm that made you believe everything would be fine. That confidence carried teams through difficult moments. Across the years, Sonny played the game with fearlessness and grace. He absorbed hard hits and returned to the field without complaint. Injuries tested him, but they never defined him. Instead, he became a symbol of toughness balanced with intelligence. A quarterback who understood that football was both physical and mental. As his playing career came to an end, Sonny did not disappear from the game. He transitioned into broadcasting, where his voice found a new home. On television and radio, he explained the sport with clarity and warmth. Fans trusted him. He spoke not as a critic, but as someone who loved football deeply. Viewers appreciated his steady tone and honest insight. He never talked down to the audience. He invited them in. A longtime listener once shared online, Sonny made football feel personal. Like you were watching the game with a friend. That connection extended his legacy beyond the field. When news of his death spread, tributes arrived from across the league. Former players, coaches, and fans shared memories filled with respect. One message read, "He was the definition of a professional. On the field and off." Another tribute simply said, "Sundays won't feel the same without him." Sonny's life reflected consistency. He showed up, year after year, with the same quiet dedication. Fame never changed his approach. Whether throwing passes or calling plays from the booth, he remained focused on the game itself. That authenticity earned him lasting admiration. In the communities he touched, Sonny was remembered as generous and thoughtful. He gave time to fans and support to causes he believed in. Those close to him often spoke about his kindness away from the spotlight. Football was his platform, but character was his foundation. Today, stadiums feel a little quieter in spirit. The echoes of his career remain in highlights, broadcasts, and shared memories. Every precise throw replayed on screen carries a piece of his legacy. Every calm voice explaining the game recalls his presence. Sonny Jurgensen will be remembered as a quarterback who made Sundays matter. Not just for the wins or the records, but for the way he carried himself. His legacy lives on in the love of the game he helped shape, and in the generations of fans who learned football through his steady, trusted voice. The confirmation came quietly, without fanfare. Just a simple line of news that carried deep meaning for those who understood its weight. Herman Lamont McLemore had passed away. For many, his name was tied to a sound that once filled the air with warmth and hope. A sound that felt gentle, yet powerful. Herman Lamont McLemore's journey began long before bright stages and television appearances. He grew up with a love for music that was rooted in harmony and togetherness. Singing was not about standing out. It was about blending in. From the beginning, his focus was on how voices could move together as one. As a founding member of the Fifth Dimension, Herman helped shape a group that felt different from its time. Their music crossed lines between soul, pop, and light jazz. It carried optimism when the world often felt uncertain. Songs were filled with color, warmth, and a sense of possibility. Herman's presence helped hold that balance. The group's rise brought success, but it also brought responsibility. They became voices of calm during moments of cultural change. Their harmonies offered comfort without preaching. Herman understood that music could bring people together without saying too much. It simply needed to feel honest. Those who worked alongside him often described his steady nature. He was known as thoughtful and deeply respectful of the craft. One former group member once shared, Herman believed harmony was more than music. It was a way of living. That belief guided both his performances and his life. As the years passed, Herman's creativity continued beyond the stage. He found expression in visual art and photography. Through images, he explored the same themes found in his music: balance, beauty, and connection. Art became another language for him, one that spoke quietly but clearly. Even away from the spotlight, his influence remained. Fans continued to discover the Fifth Dimension's music, often describing how it made them feel lighter. One listener wrote online, "Their songs remind me that hope can sound simple." Another tribute read, "Herman McLemore helped create music that still feels kind." When news of his death became public, messages of respect and gratitude followed. Fellow artists remembered his gentle spirit. Fans shared memories of songs that played during important moments in their lives. A family statement noted, "Herman lived with grace and believed deeply in unity." Those words reflected the life he led. Herman never chased attention. His work was about contribution, not praise. In a world that often rewards noise, he chose harmony. That choice shaped a legacy built on cooperation and warmth. His voice did not overpower others. It lifted them. As time moves forward, his music continues to play. It drifts through old recordings, family gatherings, and quiet evenings. Each harmony carries a piece of his spirit. Each note reminds listeners of a time when music felt like an invitation to come together. Herman Lamont McLemore will be remembered as an artist who believed in unity. A man who used sound and image to spread calm and hope. His legacy lives in the harmonies that still surround us, and in the gentle reminder that beauty is often found when voices move together as one.